What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So today, the main thing that I'm working on is rebuilding my STI axles. As you can see over here, I have already started to strip down a few of them. I have all of the pieces for the CV joint. I didn't plan on fully rebuilding these axles. I was just gonna replace some boots, but I cleaned up the boots really well and inspected them, and a lot of them were pretty damaged. I knew that I had to strip down the one axle where the boot was completely torn, because I have heard that when a boot tears like that and then road debris and dirt can get inside of the CV joint, it's dangerous to keep using that axle unless you tear it apart and inspect it and make sure that the internal components aren't messed up. Because that one was so torn and the others had some holes in them, I just decided to strip them all down and inspect them. You know how it goes. You intend to do it one way to make it efficient, and then the next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'll just take it a step further, and then another step further, and then another step further, and then you've completely stripped the whole thing apart and you have to rebuild it from scratch. I'm not complaining, because it's just gonna feel that much better when it's all complete. I have one more axle right here that I saved that I haven't stripped down yet, just so I could show you what I've figured out with this job. So stripping these down isn't really that bad. It's super messy though. You get grease everywhere, so just get some gloves if you're gonna do this. I'll jump into stripping this axle down and pull it all apart, and I'll kind of show you as I go what's required to do this job. Now, before I get started doing that, I wanted to show you the boots that I picked up to replace the ones on these STI axles. So I got these Beck Arnley ones from Rock Auto. If you've watched this channel in the past, you will know that I am a huge fan of OEM parts. However, when I priced them, they were outrageously expensive. So when I looked up the parts for the boots with the clamps as well as the grease and the circlips that these come with, they were like over $300, and I was just not about to spend $300 on rubber boots. So I kind of wanted to show you real quick, because I was a little concerned that I would get these in the mail and they would be junk, because with Rock Auto stuff, you know, you're getting a generic brand, and some stuff's good and other stuff is like horrible, and I would never run it on my car. But let me just do a little comparison real quick so you can see the quality of these. So this is the STI rear axle, and that's the outer boot right there. And this is the Beck Arnley one. So as you can see, they are the exact same size and shape. They have the same number of bellows in them. Obviously this one's stretched out a little bit, so it might look slightly longer, but once this is clamped in place, it'll stretch a little bit as well. And to be honest, the thickness of it is just as thick, if not maybe a little bit thicker. And that could just be because this material is smashed down by this clamp, and it's probably just worn and broken down a little bit. But I'm actually pretty impressed with the quality of these. And the nice thing about those is that I got all 8 boots with the clamps and the circlips for, I think, $90-something for all 8 of them. So I just feel like that was a way better deal for what you get. And so I'm gonna run these and hopefully they last, and I guess we'll find out. But I'm gonna get started. Let's tear down this axle, pull it apart, and then we can work on rebuilding these things. All right, so first I'm gonna start with the outside of the axle. I'm gonna start by getting this clamp off of here. I just cut the thing off because we're done with it. I like to clean up some of this grease because it makes it easier to visualize what you're doing inside here. Now, right inside this edge right here of the cup, there's a little, I think this is also called a circlip, but I'm not totally sure. There's a little clip in there, and if you clean some of that grease out, you'll be able to see it. You can stick your screwdriver in there and kind of pry gently, and it'll just pop out. Pull that over the axle. You want to save that piece. I think you can reuse these. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't see why you couldn't. There's nothing damaged on this piece, on this ring, so I'll probably run it. Now you can just free the cup. It comes right out. So we'll set this aside for now, and then we'll we'll clean the grease out of there in a minute. So now all the ball bearings, they're only stuck on there by the grease, but if you kind of spin it around, some of them will fall off. So just make sure that you're aware that these are gonna wanna come out. You don't wanna lose them. So again, you can clean off some of this grease, you can visualize what you're doing. Now, there's a circlip on the end right here. It's easiest if you have one of these tools right here for getting these circlips off. So just stick it in the ends where the holes are on this thing. They're a little tricky. Expand the clip. Oh, try not to lose it. Now that that's off there, this piece should just slide right off. Okay, so this has an orientation too, so just remember that the side that is flared, that flares out, right? Like, so the side that has like the wider opening faces to the outside of the axle. So just, you need to remember that when you pull that off. Same with this piece. There's an inner kind of line around the spline right there, or where the splines are right there, and that goes to the inside of the axle. So you want that facing in when you put it on. Now this is the inner race. So as far as what I can tell just from doing research, you want to really inspect these for damage. You can probably see there's some wear marks in there where the ball bearings roll in these areas. But aside from those little wear marks, they appear to be in really good shape. I don't see any marring or like gouges, and same with this race. I don't see any gouges or marring or anything. A little bit of wear on the inside right here, again, like where the ball bearings kind of slide, but they seem to be in good shape. I don't know a lot about CV axles, but from what I can tell, and just from reading on Naziok and watching some other mechanics on YouTube, it seems like you just kind of want to inspect them for any obvious deformities or gouges or anything that might indicate that stuff has been wearing improperly or is just damaged. So, all right, so I'm going to move on to removing this other boot. On this side of the axle, this is the outside of the rear. The fronts are set up the same way. So there is a circlip holding this into the cup, but it's down inside of here, and it sits right here. That's what this thing is, right here. This little like pin looking thing that sits on the end of this groove on the axle. So this sits right in here, and basically you have to pull this through, and you got to get it to like pop over this clip when you pull it out. Now the proper way to do this is to use a slide hammer. So you'd want to like clamp the thing in the vise, attach the slide hammer to the axle right here, thread the nut on so it can't come off, and then slam the slide hammer back, and it would pop this off of that circlip. That's what it looks like once it's off the axle. So all right, so I have the axle cup clamped in the vise here with a towel around it so we don't damage any of the splines. Basically, you know, if you tap on this, you can see how it moves. So what you want to do is basically press, like, take a punch and hit the outer race on one of these little indentations so that it pushes the whole race up and out of the other side so that the ball bearing is sticking out of the top, and then you're able to remove it. So I'll do that right now, show you. Now the ball bearing is right here. Sometimes it can still be a little bit tricky to get out, so I use a screwdriver from the back, and then I'm able to just kind of pop it right out. yeah, and then I just keep working my way around it until I can get all of the ball bearings out. Another thing to note, it has this, the inner race has a groove in the splines, and that sits towards the axle. If you move this, you can see the top of the outer race. It has a very small lip to it right here. And if you were to flip it over, it's got a much larger lip right there. That larger lip faces down in the cup. So you just wanna be aware of how you're taking this apart, because you wanna put it back in the correct way. So I can't tell you exactly how this comes out, but you just pull both of them straight up like this, and you just need to find where it's gonna line up perfectly, and it just pops out. And it's the strangest thing, because every time I do it, it doesn't feel like it's gonna work, and then it ends up coming right out. So I just kind of keep working it around until it frees itself, essentially. As soon as I turn the camera, oh, see, there it goes. I have no idea. Same thing with this. You have to like line everything up like perfectly in order for it to like pop through the cage. And I have no idea exactly how that happens. I just know that it does like that. So there it is. All right, so there is the inner race, also in really great shape, not concerned about any sort of damage, which is great. And if you've ever wondered what the inside of a CV axle cup looks like, especially the outer one, that's what it looks like. It's honestly a pretty beautifully machined piece of metal. All right guys, so it is the next day actually. I worked on reassembling one of the axles off camera. It's a little bit tricky, and so because I knew that it would take me a little bit of time to figure it out, I just worked on it without filming, just so I don't bore you guys, just sitting there watching me struggle, trying to figure out how to get the pieces all to line up correctly. So now that I've done that, I do feel a lot more confident in kind of showing you what I figured out, and that way I can give you a really good, concise breakdown of how to reassemble these axles. All right guys, so I'm gonna start with the outer axle cup that looks like this. That is the one that uses the race with these kind of little knobs that stick out, and then the bigger of the two cages. So obviously you want to put these two pieces together first. It's a little bit tricky, but you just gotta like be patient and realize that like there is a way where it fits smoothly. So I kind of go like this with them and just like slide it in. So there's two sides to this too. Like this side has a thinner sort of like border than this one. This one's got a much wider flat edge to it. So on the other side that's thinner, I think it makes it a little easier to put this in. So just going sideways, and then just kind of work the thing around until you can like line them up like that. The way this goes in the axle too is these little points that stick off this inner race. By the way, I don't know if this is called the outer race or if it's just like the bearing cage, and this is technically the outer race. I'm not sure, but so if I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. I'm not an expert, but anyway, so you want the bigger edge to be facing away from the cup, as well as the teeth on the inner race to be facing away from the cup. So it gets dropped in like that. So once you have it like this part's a little bit trickier. You just gotta kind of keep them lined up and find where it wants to sort of drop in with the little notches like in one of the little cage holes, and just kind of work the thing until it drops into place. And I'll probably sit here and struggle for a while, so if I do, I'll just speed it up. Oh, no, it seems like it's gonna go. And just be gentle too when you're doing this. There's not any grease on this right now, so you don't wanna like damage, oh, there it goes. Yeah, honestly, like the more gentle you are with this and just like the less you get frustrated and just kind of like take your time, the easier they all sort of like drop into place. So, so that thing's all ready. Now I'm going to put it in the vise, and then I'm just going to show you what I did to put the ball bearings into the cage. It's pretty much the same way I pulled them out. You line it up like this, drop the ball bearings in, push it down, push it to the other side so it sticks up. Ball bearings go in there, and then you just work your way around. I did have to use the punch again towards the end to get all of them situated once I had most of them filled up. So you will have to use the punch to install some of the ball bearings. Okay, so the first couple are pretty dang easy because it's moving so freely, but you can just kind of drop them in, just push them in until they sort of lock into place. Work your way around. All right, now all the ball bearings are in. All right, now I'm just going to shove a bunch of grease down in here. So I guess a common mistake that people make is putting the grease in the boot and not the like axle like CV joint itself. So just want to make sure that you don't do that. You want to pack this CV joint with grease. You can put grease in the boot as well if you want, but you really want to make sure that this part of the axle is packed with lots of grease. There we go. It went. You'll know when it's in. You won't be able to see any more of the splines. If it's not all the way in there, you'll be able to pull it back off. And obviously I can't. And you can't see any more of the splines in here. So, but yeah, it moves around nice. And doing this will kind of move that grease around. I don't want to do it too much because we still got to get our boot on. So let's go ahead and throw that on. Alright guys, so I find this easier to do on the ground like this. And then here's our clamp. I like this style clamp, but if you use it, you do need one of these tools. I think I picked this up off of Amazon. It's pretty damn cheap. I don't remember what the cost was because it was a while ago, but I don't mind this style. You can also just use the metal zip tie style where like as you pull it through, it kind of ratchets itself down and you don't even really need to worry about clamping it or anything. I have seen people use those. I've never used them on a boot like this, so I can't really say that they work better or not, but I do know these work quite well. Once you get the hang of them, they're not too bad. They can be a little bit tricky at first, and if you've never done it, you're likely gonna mess one or two up before you really figure it out. So just take your time and be patient. So the way this works is you feed it through the slot. It goes underneath the little cutter in there, and then it goes through this piece right here, and that's how you wind it up. So I'll just kind of show you real quick. So through there, and then you can just start winding it up like this. I like to get it pretty damn tight, but not so tight that it's going to cut through the rubber. And once I'm confident it's tight enough, bend that thing up, and then not coming off. All right, guys, so now we will work on the inside. This one is a little bit easier. So just looking at these two pieces, the cage and the inner race. The inner race, there's kind of like a line inside of it, inside the splines. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that in there. But there's a line like down here. You can kind of see inside there. That needs to go down in the cup. So the cage flares. So the wider part faces away from the cup. So the skinnier part, the more narrow part gets dropped in the cup. There's really not much to this one as far as fitting them together. It just drops in. It's really easy. This is the cup that is just held on by that spring pin. So this whole thing just drops in there. You don't have to worry about finagling it like the other one. So basically what we do, get our axle. It's easier if you just kind of mount this thing up. Now boot goes on. This way. I just slid the cup back on. I'm working on this pin. Okay. And then before I kind of move forward with the clamps, I'm just gonna kind of feel. Axle is complete. All right, guys, so here is this is the one that we just did. So both front axles are now complete with brand new CV axle boots, and they were completely cleaned up and re-greased with fresh grease. So they should feel nice and smooth inside that gearbox. All right, guys, so we are several weeks in the future. I have really been trying to make time to film stuff that I'm doing, but it's just been really tough over the last several weeks. But I'm just gonna give you a quick update on what has happened since I rebuilt those axles. So these are the rear Brembos, and I have been figuring out how to powder coat here at home. That's why this oven has been in the garage, because I have been planning to use it for this. It actually turned out pretty nice, as you can see. And so now I have the front caliper here that I finally prepped. That's all cleaned up and ready to go. I just need to mask it up and reassemble it and throw it in the oven for a pre-bake cycle, and then we can coat it. So the color that I went with on these, it's called Spanish Gold, and it is from Prismatic Powders. They make really good powder coat, or at least that's what everyone says on the interwebs. And I think it turned out really nice. I am still gonna put some clear coat over these because I guess it will prevent them from fading, and it will help prevent chips and things like that. So they will just hold up a little bit longer. I'm still waiting for the Brembo stickers that I ordered. I ordered black, so those will look really nice on the gold. And personally, I like that color of gold a lot more than this color that the Brembos were originally. These are like more of like a bronze or like slightly orangish gold, whereas this is more of like yellow. So yeah, that's kind of the next step that I'm working on, is just getting the brakes all finished so they are done. Before I do that, I'll just show you guys a few things that I was able to get done on the car. That way you can kind of see where the progress is at on this whole build. So that is the rear sway bar right there. I actually sprayed this with an industrial coating. I got it from a supplier here in town. It's a paint, but it sprays out really, really thick, and it's supposed to hold up and not be as susceptible to chipping like normal paint would. Definitely was not the cheapest stuff, but because my oven is not big enough to powder coat, I went with the paint route on some of these bigger pieces. So I did refinish the front subframe. As you can see, it's all shiny and freshly painted. I also mounted the STI, I forget what this is called, the U-joint, I think maybe, for the steering rack. That piece is more solid than the WRX one. The WRX one has like these dampeners in it. I guess this one just makes you feel a little bit more connected to the road and to the car, so stoked to have that. I also went through the steering rack, reinstalled like new O-rings in these lines, and then up underneath here, this hose that connects between these two hard lines, I actually pulled this off, cleaned everything underneath it, and put new clamps on here. I'm just so sick of this thing leaking, and I couldn't figure out where it was leaking from, but it was definitely still leaking after I installed it, and it's a new steering rack, so I'm guessing it was coming from this line because I could kind of spin it. I could spin it around even when the other like spring clamps were on there. I think the spring clamps were just so worn out that it was allowing fluid to get past it. I got the steering rack all mounted up and ready to go, and our front sway bar, as you can see, with brand new bushings. The back subframe and rear diff I have reinstalled as well, so I'll show you that. I did end up cleaning everything underneath this car. I wasn't going to because it looked okay, but it was just so filthy. To be honest, I'm super glad that I did. I'm not kidding you. I wire brushed and cleaned and probably got like pounds of dirt off from underneath this chassis. But it looks really nice. It looks super new again. And I am really psyched that I took that extra step. So just like the front subframe, I refinished the rear subframe as well. We got the R180 rear diff installed, and that's pretty much all I've done on the rear. Sides also really cleaning super well in the fender wells also. These are the brackets for the trailing arms, and I also painted those with the industrial finish as well. The parts that I painted, they were just like chipping, and there was some like rust that I needed to take care of, so I sanded it all off, treated it, and then put this coating on there, and so hopefully it lasts. Got new bushings in here. It's the piece that's kind of shaped like a T that you bolt the rear diff to. I forget what it's called, like the diff carrier or something maybe. But yeah, I got that reinstalled with new bushing, so pretty stoked about that. And this is the driver's side rear wheel well that I cleaned. I would like to like re-coat this with something. I'm just not really sure what to use yet, so I need to do a little bit more research. I've heard of people using Raptor liner, but I guess that's not the right kind of thing to use for this job, so I don't think I will be going that route. I thought at first when I heard about that I would want to use that, but I don't think that's a smart move. I have also refinished the rear knuckles and spindles, as you can see here, and I took them to a local like driveline shop, and they pressed out these bushings that I guess were like pretty difficult to press out. They had a hell of a time apparently. I don't know if it's just because they were so old or what, but so yeah, we're gonna be replacing those bushings with like some Super Pro bushings perhaps, or white line or something, whatever I can find that's like a reasonable price. And then I showed you guys these before. These are the front knuckles, and then the control arms, or sorry, the rear trailing arms here. I used that same blue industrial coating on these as well, and we're gonna be replacing the bushings in those also. But yeah, obviously I'm kind of in a holding pattern for now until I can get those bushings ordered and installed so that we can start putting more components back on the car. But I may wanna wait anyways so that I can paint those fender wells without extra stuff in the way. Also kind of in a holding pattern because I don't have the right suspension. Unfortunately, the WRX suspension, at least the front coilovers, the bracket that holds them, so this bracket right here, it's narrower than the piece like this. There's this piece on the front spindles that this slides over, and it's much wider, so these won't work. And so I either need like a different bottom bracket for this shock, or I need to figure out a different coilover setup. I did talk to the guys at Raceland, and they said just to email them when I'm getting to the point that I want to reinstall these, and look to see if they have just the brackets that they could sell me, but it's pretty unlikely, it sounds like, that they'll have it. So definitely still need some more parts to really reassemble everything, but we'll get there slowly but surely. Without further ado, let's jump into these brakes, get these all masked up, get the oven preheated, and we will throw those in for a pre-bake cycle. All right, so I'm using this tape right here. It's like a heat resistant masking tape. I just got it on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. Probably take me a long time to get through this whole roll. Just got the areas we do not want any powder on. All right, so I just put it in for the pre-bake cycle. So we're gonna leave that in there for about 20 minutes, then we'll take it out, let it cool down a bit, and then we will powder coat it. My gun leaks because it's a piece of crap. So we gotta wait for it to get to 400 degrees, and then we keep it in for 10 minutes. All right, so it looks pretty good so far. This is fresh out of the oven, so it still needs to kind of cure a bit. It's not perfect, but it looks really good overall. And I think once I clear coat it, it will pop quite a bit more. I may do another coat. That's what I did on both of these. Baked them, pulled them out, let them cool, did a second coat. So I may do that with this. There's kind of some weird like bubbles right here. I don't know if you can see that. If it'll really pick it up. Yeah, you can see that. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's because it's not the bare metal underneath, and maybe some of the paint underneath did kind of start to flake or something. I'm not sure. I might wait till it cools and kind of like feel that area and see if it's maybe something I could like sand out real quick and then cover it up with the next coat. But yeah, we'll find out. I will wait for it to cool. It takes forever for these things to cool. It's like solid like hour or two before you can like really touch them. So wait until that happens, and then we will investigate. All right guys, so it is the next day and the caliper has had time to fully cure. This is what it looks like. The spots where it was kind of bubbled up really don't look as bad now. It's sort of flattened out a little bit. But you can see some pitting in the metal here. I guess that was just kind of how the metal was, and I didn't really notice after sanding, but that's all right. We're gonna throw a second coat on this anyhow. I think it will improve a lot of that. It'll kind of fill some of that in and probably smooth some of this out. I don't really want to like hit it with sandpaper because sanding on this powder coat, I realized, doesn't really work that well. I got the piston areas all masked up again, and our bolts put back in to save the threads. And yeah, we're just going to throw it back on the oven rack there and put it in the oven for the pre-bake cycle, and then we'll throw another coat on. Well, there it is, guys. Fresh out of the oven. Still hot as hell, so I'm not going to touch it, but it looks really nice. Yeah, that second coat, man, that's what happened on the other ones too. They looked pretty good after the first coat, but that second coat really really does them justice. Super happy about that. You can still see some of the pitting in the metal. I think that's, I don't know, just not that, I'm not really that concerned about it. You're not going to notice once it's behind a wheel, and after I clear cut it, it's going to hide a little bit of it as well. Yeah, I mean, it looks really, really nice. Especially if we compare, so we'll do a little before. This is what they were before. I mean, they don't look bad. That would have looked okay on the car, but the tops of them just have a bunch of chipping paint. And yeah, I mean, there's also like these spots here. There's a big spot like that on the other one where I don't know what happened here, but I basically sanded it down on the other one and just sanded it smooth. And now you can't tell that that was ever an issue. But yeah, the paint on these is just in rough shape. So I just think like, you know, compared to this, I mean, it's night and day difference. This looks so much better, and it's gonna look even better once we clear coat them with the black Brembo stickers. So yeah, pretty dang cool. Powder coating's pretty fun. It is definitely tricky. It's not the same as just like spraying paint. There's like an electrical charge, I guess, or static electric, I don't know, something like that. I forget exactly what's going on with powder coat, but basically it's like, that's why I put that little grounding electrode like on the metal, the stainless steel like metal piece that I wrap around the oven rack. Because basically you need it to be grounded, and so whatever outlet you're plugging your gun into, it has to be grounded. And so that's why I use this outdoor outlet, because I know that it has really good grounding. This gun, this little Eastwood gun that I have, you push this little button and it creates a positive charge. I believe it charges the powder, and so the powder is like attracted to the negative charge of the grounded caliper. And so it just like basically pulls the powder onto it and like latches onto the thing, and then you just bake it on. You don't like just spray the powder like at the object, you kind of just spray it around the object, and if you're doing it right and you have good grounding, it should just like pull it onto it. This gun is like a super budget gun. It's not very good. If you really are on a budget, you can get away with it, but I tried to powder coat a wheel with that gun and it did not work out well. I think for something that big, you just need a higher quality tool. But anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap this video here now that we have that caliper finished up. Obviously we need to finish this one, so I will strip that one down and we'll get that done. And then the next video, I should have the Brembo decals in by early next week. And so in the next video, I'll kind of knock these out, get them completely finished with the decals on, and I'll put the clear coat over that, so we can finally see the full finished product. I will link to the Prismatic Powder, this Spanish Gold, as well as the Eastwood gun that I use for this in the description below. The other stuff that we'll do in the next video is basically getting this transmission prepped But yeah, that'll be cool. And once that's done, then we can actually start working on the task of getting it mounted in the car. So that's it for now. That's all I got. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed this content, and think about subscribing to the channel if you want to see more. And until next time, peace out, everybody.